You're listening to the Fact Hunter Radio Network.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers from around the world. It's time for another edition of the Flat Earth Files. And standing by, we have a special guest who will be joining us in just a moment. Alex will be joining us from Cochrane, Alberta, Canada. We're certainly having our guests a nice variety. We just had Lauren the other night from Australia, so we appreciate all the emails literally from around the world. So thank you for that. Before we kick off and bring Alex in, just a reminder, if you would like to join the program like Alex is tonight, please reach out. It is the Flat Earth Files at gmail.com. Excuse me. This is what happens when you have two podcasts. It's the Flat Earth Files at gmail.com. So questions, comments, concerns, or again, if you'd like to come on, I'm officially booked out for May, so we're looking for guests for June at this point. And please stop by our website. We have a great chat room. We have a great forum, a lot of people with a lot of great information. A lot of listeners have been sending me pictures. I've been posting them in the chat room, so check it out. It is theflatearthfiles.com. All right, let's jump into it, ladies and gentlemen. Alex reached out to me a few weeks ago, and he's got a great website, which is, I'm going to bring it up right here. It is kpdesign.ca. Check it out. And if you'd like to reach out to him, you can go on the website and you can connect with him there. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Alex from Cochrane, Alberta, Canada. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, George. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the email and thanks for all the information. And you've got some great stories with your family. Quite a legacy, and talking to you briefly before the show started, you're doing a tremendous job of carrying that legacy. So please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex, and I came up with this tagline this morning. I'm an inquisitive geocentrist. And if anybody else wants to borrow that label so you can escape the stigma of the flat earth, the negative stigma, please use inquisitive geocentrist.
That's a good one. That we get a lot of recommendations, biblical earth, and that's a good one. What was that? Geocentric inquisitor?
Sure. Inquisitive geocentrist. And you can just play around with that.
Nice. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your awakening process and like where was flat earth in your I guess your hierarchy of awakening?
Okay, so I would say that my awakening started pretty late in life. So I joke around that Santa Claus kind of got killed in front of me way later in life, so it was a little bit more traumatic. So I'd say when I was about 24 or 25 years old, my electrical school teacher, just for fun, I don't know how we got on the topic, but he was asking everybody in the class to raise their hand to see who believed in the moon landing. And I was the only one that raised their hand because I was the only one that actually believed that we went to the moon. And that was about almost 20 years ago. And that was kind of a huge eye opener to me that something so huge could be a lie. And then obviously over the last 2 years, basically everything we've watched on the news, I would say has been a complete lie. And anybody that disagrees with that, I'm sorry, but you need to check reality because these people are not telling us the truth on the news. Nothing is for our own good. It is to control us. So funny enough that, we're talking about the stairwell to flat earth. So I started to get into jiu-jitsu last year and I started following Eddie Bravo. This is kind of a funny segue into flat earth, but Eddie Bravo is a big jiu-jitsu guy and he talks about flat earth. And I was listening to the Tinfoil Hat podcast with Eric Dubay, Sam Tripoli, and I think one of the Gracie family members were on there. I don't know if you've heard that episode before, George.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's it was very interesting. And I thought, oh man, okay. So I'm like, this is crazy. What are these guys talking about? I know math, I know physics. I'm not a professor, but I know enough. I worked in electrical engineering. I got this. I'm going to prove flat Earth wrong once and for all. And away we go. I started the deep dive, and every hour, every minute, every hour that went by as I was uncovering, peeling back the onion, I just realized that the foundation that which we are taught on it's nonsense. There's so much wrong, and everybody always asks, well, what was it? And we can get into that, but just the things, the lies that they top on, put on top of lies, yeah, to try and convince us that we're on this like spinning ball. We are space monkeys that are evolving, and the more I got into it, the more upset I was getting, because I told myself that this will be very easy to shut down quickly. And I hope that when I speak to people, I try to keep my passions down so that I don't come across as, too aggressive or too assertive. I want people to be inquisitive and ask questions. And, but wow, once you start digging, it's an amazing journey, and I'm really grateful for it. It's actually like really revved me up over the last, I guess I've been researching since August, and man, like I felt so alive when I had this epiphany in September of 2022 that, I had faith before, but this was like that cementing of God made me for a reason. I'm here. I have free will. The story of creation in Genesis is what happened. And the creationist story of the Big Bang, that's the myth. That's the lie that pulls you away from God. Yep. And, I had my aha moment that anything that's trying to pull you away from God is not good. Even if the world isn't a flat plane like they say it is, or if it's a triangle or a trapezoid, if this community can get you closer to God, it is a good thing. And, I call myself a geocentrist now because I do believe in the story of creation. Yeah. I look out into the sky and I see the sun and I see the moon. And even yesterday I looked out and I saw the sun and the moon at the same time in the sky. And, the moon is not being blocked by the earth. I'm looking right at the sun. Like there's just so many things, and we can get into that too, but there's just so many things once you start to like deprogram, you just notice, you start trusting in your senses again. And I think that's what so much of schooling and the programming does to us. It takes us away from our God-given senses.
That is such an important point. And we talk about this so often, is people are they'll take the word of somebody they've never met before because they have on a white lab coat and a name tag, versus what they can see, hear, feel, and touch. And
right,
it's time to start believing in the things you can see. Do these tests for yourself. Some of these you can do very simply. I was listening to you as you were describing your awakening, and I was thinking of Alex in September 2022 and thinking of myself. Say again? Oh, I thought you said something. I'm sorry. I was thinking of myself the same way. I'd read an article when I finally let my guard down to look into this, and the process, and you start to run your fingers through your hair and you shake your head a little bit and you're like, this can't be happening. There's no way. I mean, 9/11's one thing, the Gulf of Tonkin, Kennedy, this, that, and the other thing. And then it goes back to the moon landing, like you said. And even as a young man, I didn't buy off on that, on the whole thing. And now as time moves on and you look at those videos from 1969, you can tell they were, like a bad Godzilla movie from the 60s with the technology they had. And this is the only technology in the history of the world that has gone backwards. Yet people will still boldly say, come on. And again, the thing they always go back to, instead of look into it and trying to disprove it, they'll simply say, either A, it's too big of a lie, too many people are involved, and I can tell you, as someone who was in a very big organization like the Army, compartmentalization is real. And when you were talking about the news and how everything is a lie, people will say the same thing. Well, how could they get away with it? Well, they get away with stuff every single day. This monster, which is the government, has turned into this huge octopus that has zero accountability. They do what they want. They don't care what we think whatsoever. And because we've never held them accountable, this octopus is only going to continue to grow unless we put our foot down.
Right. And I think that so many of us, I think so many people need to realize that the atrocities of these lies are so poisonous and so awful, and we also have these like emotional attachments to them, like something so incredible happened. How could it be a lie, right? Whether it's a good thing like going to the moon and man's greatest achievement, or if it's 9/11, like how could humans do that to one another? I think these are the things that short circuit people's brains, and when you have people like us talking about it to them, it cuts deep, and a lot of people aren't ready for that, and maybe they never will be. And I really like what you do on this podcast is you do it very well with kindness, and you don't make fun of anybody, and you don't you don't trash anybody for their beliefs, because we all were there.
Yeah,
we were all, and I'll get emotional here, but when we all die, we will all come back together again. And to me, that's a good thing. We'll know everything once we die and we go back to the source. And this realm that we're in, it's one of my friends was asking me, he's like, why did God give us free will? Or why did God choose to give us free will? And I didn't know the answer. And he said, so that you could choose God. And I thought that was like, wow. To me, I thought that was incredible. And how hard is it now to choose God when there's so much depravity in the world, like sexual depravity and just all these horrible things, like all these things that are coming at us for us to consume are really meant to pull us away in one way or another from who we are, from our senses, from the good things that we can do when we go out into our communities and serve to make it a better place.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying earlier in the conversation I had earlier today, when people say people couldn't do that, people think of the evil that things do from their point of view. And what you have to realize is people at the top of the food chain, and the word you have to use, they're psychopaths. They don't have their switch like we have, right? When we get angry, we get really mad. We have a switch that, okay, that's enough. You've yelled. You're not, but they don't have that switch. They look at us as a number. And if you don't believe me, if you're not familiar with the Georgia Guidestones, these guys are eugenics. They want to keep the world population at 500 million. They want you to believe that there's wall-to-wall people around the world. There's no room left for anybody. And anybody who's been on an airplane before knows how much unused land is out there. It's ridiculous to think that we're even close to it. And they want you to think there's a food shortage. Well, the reason it's not really a food shortage. It's just everybody depends on everybody else for food. That if the grocery store is out of something, they consider that a food shortage. But this society has made people or led people to believe that it's more important to have a pretty green lawn with no dandelions than it is to grow your own food.
Right. And I've been saying it for 10, 15 years. If we all just tilled up our front yards and grew gardens, nobody would go hungry. Just with the front yards, not even the backyards.
Yeah. It's funny. We have, I've mentioned before, we have Amish friends. Their front yard is literally, they use every square foot of their yard for food. Their entire front yard is just cabbage and celery and corn. They have hundreds of chickens. I mean, they utilize every square inch. They go to the grocery store for things? Sure, they do. Our grocery stores in this area, because we're in a rural area, they have the little hitches for their horses and buggies. There's horse poop all over the roads. But they're the most down-to-earth, healthy, loving people. We love interacting with them. The children are healthy. They run around with no shoes on the gravel. They're really in touch. And I look at them, I said, sometimes I wish I could just be like this, just throw all of it away. These people don't sit around at their dinner table and argue about Russia and Ukraine and Trump and Biden. They're just not a part of that world.
Right. I've been saying along, since the pandemic started, I said somewhere in the bushes is a hunter, and he has no idea how terrified he's supposed to be.
Yeah,
he's just going about his life. And growing up, my grandparents, I was telling you earlier that my grandparents are from Russia, and they'd seen some hard times going through famines, and they had been locked in prison for speaking out against the communists. And when they came to Canada, the first thing they did when they got their house was till up the backyard and do gardens. And they would, everything that they couldn't eat in the summer, they would can it and store it in a cold room in the basement. And to me, that was normal. And then my parents didn't do that, and they kind of broke the chain. And now I picture myself going back to what my grandparents were doing, and being a lot more self-sustainable.
Indeed. And I can see that more and more people are wanting to do that. I got an email today from a young lady who lives in a development with an HOA, and they're trying to take this to the board to get them to overturn having poultry. I mean, there is, for lack of a better word, there's a great awakening right now. People are even the normalist of normie, as we would say, are starting to understand there is something seriously wrong. I think a lot of people, for the first year of the pandemic, they just took it wholesale, and then they continued to drag it out. And in the winter of 2021, they told us if we didn't get vaccinated, we were going to die. And they've really showed their hands, and you can only lie so many times. And people are waking up, and I'm starting to see, again, people who normally would just go about their day and come home and have a cold beer and watch sports are starting to be more concerned. They want to learn how to grow gardens. I get questions all the time about chickens, and that's great. I think it's really, if we want to change things, we need to start our own type of society and unplug from that. Stop trading with Netflix and YouTube. I haven't been on YouTube in over a year. It's like, if you don't want me, I don't want you. I don't want to have a relationship with someone who doesn't want me to be part of them. So I'll go on Rumble or wherever else. So let's kind of get back to your flat Earth journey. You had mentioned, was there one particular thing that you may have read or saw that completely changed your course of view on the flat Earth?
Yeah. So when I started digging, as some people give Eric Dubé a hard time, I personally don't mind him at all. He comes off a little snarky once in a while. I first would tell people to come and listen to the Flat Earth Files, because I like the way that you do this. But if you want to check out like 200 Proofs on whatever streaming service, I actually, because of you, I just bought the book 100 Proofs by William Carpenter.
What a great book.
So I was reading that, and wow, like seriously, everybody should just at least check it out. And the Zetetic Astronomy, I also grabbed that. So that's really cool. So one of the big things that hooked me was the North Star. I thought, this is very, very cool that the stars are all rotating around the North Star. So what I did was I reverse engineered basically the lies. And I don't know, I say this to as many people as possible, because I don't think anybody can fathom that they want us to believe like these numbers. But like when I went to school, I thought that the sun just sat there. But now they want us just to know that the sun is like a comet flying through the galaxy at 480,000 miles per hour. This is insane. First of all, this is insane, everybody. That if you can believe that, you need to snap out of it now. The next thing was the convenient number of 66,600 miles per hour, which is the invisible carousel that we're on, flying around the sun. And then to top it off, we're also spinning, 1,000 miles per hour or whatever it is. And to tell me that at night, if you had a slow capture camera with the aperture set, for the whole night, let's say, and you can see all those stars just perfectly spinning around the North Star, but yet all these magical other things are happening in all these different X, Y, Z axes, and you still see the same stars every night. This is lunacy. And I was listening to, I think it was either episode 11. I think it was episode 11. You were talking with Sean, and maybe it was another one, that basically they just reverse engineered the numbers for parallax.
Yes. Yep.
To make it convenient that the stars are always there. They just make it trillion. And I'm like, yeah, that's great if you want to get the numbers that you want, but that's not real science. That's fake. You're just fixing your hypothesis, right?
Yeah, indeed. And Nikola Tesla tried to warn us before he died that science was changing. It was going from actually going out and doing actual experiments to math equations, and they would manipulate the numbers to fit the answers that they wanted, right?
Right. So the next thing was obviously water. Water is amazing, but water is not so amazing that it can, curve up a ball and then down the other. Seriously, people need to realize that this lie is so monstrous that it's so easy to deceive us if they can just convince us of something that's, we talk about physics, and I love physics. This is not physics. This is fake. This is not real. And I would love to have somebody just prove to us that you can get this concave water happening. I mean, you just look at the Zetetic astronomy book that I have here, and he's got so many experiments that show that this is preposterous. That's what scares me, is this lie is so huge that everybody's protecting it. That's terrifying. That's really terrifying that nobody can stop and just go against it. It's like the foundation is built so strong on this lie, and then you have all these other lies on top of it, like the sun, like gravity. When I heard that gravity is not real, my mind almost exploded. And then I thought, I have to disprove that. Like, at least gravity is real. Come on, man. Like, there's a gravitron installed in the center of this crazy ball that we're on. Like, I gotta prove that the gravitron is there. And one of the lies that I did see long ago about flat Earth was that you walk on this disc, and as you get closer to the edge, you'd be more and more attracted to the center. But that's just it was so preposterous, because they were making a claim how flat Earth wouldn't even work with gravity, because it would just you just like squish yourself at the end of the
right
at the disc or something. So they just use lies on top of lies.
Yep.
And that really bothers me too. One of my friends was asking me about the sticks and the shadows experiment, and I think that only works if your sun is 93 million miles away. But if it's local, then it doesn't, right?
Yep.
Or vice versa.
1,000%. And the thing I try to tell people, and again, this is something I didn't really realize until after I really decided to go into flat Earth and try to disprove it, which, of course, we all know all it does is prove flat Earth when you try to disprove it. But dang it, where was I going? Bernays. So like before we were flat Earth, geocentrists or biblical cosmologists, I couldn't tell you how far the sun was away from Earth. If you would have asked George from 2015, just if you would have walked into my store and said, "Hey, how far is this?" I wouldn't have said 93 million miles. If I couldn't Google it off the top of my head. And it's the same with the people who won't look into it. If you ask them, if you were to stand in front of a Walmart and ask 100 people how far, you're not going to get many people who get it right. They're not going to know the axis and all. But if you ask them, is the Earth flat? They're going to look at you like you're mental. But the reason for that
Yeah.
is, and I've done a lot of looking into TV, specifically in the 50s onward. I'm telling you, every single movie, every single TV show from about 55 or 56 on has a globe in every single movie, sometimes multiple. And it's subliminal programming is 1,000% of what it is. You've been brainwashed for your entire life to think that, I mean, that's unquestionable. Like,
Yeah.
and it is a huge
It's really, yeah, it's really troubling to me. So before I even became a geocentrist flat earther, I discovered that the Mercator map is not accurate. And this really bothered me because I believe it was the Catholic Church or something along those lines. Somewhere in Europe, they commissioned this Mercator map. So it showed the more of the northern hemisphere being predominant, like Greenland being almost the size of South America.
Yep.
And apparently, that's not correct, right? Like the Gall Peters map is, supposed to be a better representation, but obviously on the flat Earth map, Africa does look, more squished. And, to me, that was a big, to me, that's a red flag is when you're commissioning maps and they're purposely wrong. That to me, that's not right either, right? You're misleading people.
100%. And again, it should be noted that, like you said, this map, the Mercator projection map, this came out in the 16th century, the same time when Copernicus and all the other folks were really pushing this thing where, the Arctic, is on top of the ball and Antarctica is on the bottom of the ball. And again, there's a lot of misrepresentation by this map.
Right. Yeah, I also was going to say that it's just really, really important for us to break the stigma. It's really unfortunate. I mean, it's on purpose, right? Like you hear Obama talking about flat earthers and the Flat Earth Society, but I do want to give a huge shout out to my boy Justin Trudeau for hyping up flat Earth and how fake it is, because we know that everything out of that guy's mouth is a lie. And if he's telling us in 2023, if he's got to sell the globe to everybody in 2023, something's up. So I want to give him a huge shout out because if that didn't wake up a bunch of people, I don't know what will. Because I mean, these guys, everything out of their faces is a lie, and it's beyond embarrassing. Especially since I'm almost the same age as this guy. I mean, Biden. I mean, he's like Weekend at Bernie's. He's got an excuse, right? Yeah. But I mean, Justin Trudeau should have a few marbles left in his head.
Yeah, that's interesting. Somebody from Canada just 2 or 3 days ago, like he cited, if he said this, then I think flat Earth has got to be true. That's kind of how he closed the email, and I just laughed. I actually made a little video on Rumble about that when it came out, and it's gone over pretty well. Something interesting I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, for anybody who hasn't seen it, Pierre Trudeau's eulogy when Justin Trudeau, you can go on YouTube to watch it. So Justin Trudeau actually goes into the story. It might be edited or not, but he actually, I'll give you the Coles Notes version. I don't know if you've seen this, George, but he talks about taking this trip to the North Pole with his dad, and something happened there, and he had a moment where he realized my dad is a very, very powerful man for what he saw there. And that was kind of the only hint, but I tell you what, that makes me really want to go check out the North Pole and what's happening there, because if he's going to drop breadcrumbs like that, that's pretty interesting. Anyway, check that out for everybody listening.
Yeah, I don't know if it mentions flat Earth, but I did find out Trudeau offers emotional tribute to former prime minister. So this would have been just a couple of years ago, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Whenever his dad died,
okay,
the original communist lover.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that his father was the prime minister back in was it the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, in the 70s. There's a book, and I can't remember what the author's name is. It's called Red Handed. He goes into discussing, like, Pierre Trudeau's a smart guy, Justin Trudeau was not, but Pierre Trudeau was a very smart man, and he saw the potential in China and teaming up with them. And he started something, and now his Trudeau Jr. is carrying the torch for China, and they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff here.
Yeah, to the point that there was a lot of reports last year. There was actual Chinese troops training in Canada, and I do know for a fact that their military college, war college, did host some Chinese generals there last year.
Okay, and I know that we do have Chinese police stations here as well, so that they can keep tabs on their people, which is, to me, that's just insane. I mean, I didn't want to believe that, but who knows what, you might as well take it for what it's worth and try and prove it wrong now, because that's the kind of world we live in, where you and I have to be the scientists and we have to dig if we want to get to the truth, because we can't trust these people anymore in their fancy lab coats and their ivory towers.
That's right. Something that really resonated with me in your email when you first reached out to me, you talked about having your revolver with the 6 silver bullets to either prove flat Earth or wake someone up. Number 3 is the one I'd like to start with.
Okay.
And
yeah.
it's a big one too. And I encourage everybody to pause this podcast here in a second and look for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Alex's word for it. Look for yourself. You can do Australia to Santiago, Chile, or you can even do Sydney to Johannesburg, South Africa. Okay, what you're going to see is, for me, like when I did Sydney to Johannesburg, they always stop in Abu Dhabi. From Sydney to Abu Dhabi to Johannesburg, or vice versa. I forget which way it was. If you look at it on a globe map, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It goes due northeast and then due southwest. And when you're a company and making money and fuel cost as much as it does, you're going to take a direct route. And that makes no sense whatsoever at all. But when you look at it on a flat Earth map, it makes complete sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I think I haven't read the book yet, but it's on my list. Is the 16 emergency landings. I think that's very, very important for all of us to read, because once I started, this was a huge Eric Dubé thing for me. I'm like, screw this guy. I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to book a flight from Santiago, Chile to Sydney, Australia. And wouldn't you know it, there's no direct flights. And on a flat Earth map, you're going from Santiago to LAX, and then you're going to Japan, and then you're going to Australia. There are some exceptions though, and I have to confirm it. It would be great if we could get actual flight logs. I have seen where they, will fake, this is hearsay, but they'll say that you can do a direct flight from Santiago to Sydney, but they'll end up canceling those flights.
Oh, so I've heard that before as well.
Yeah, so I can't confirm that, but it would be amazing if we could get some people, some pilots out there, anybody that could get flight logs, and just confirm that. Like, call us out then. At least let us know what's possible, right? Because you're not going to circumnavigate on the bottom of the globe, which would be the easiest. You just pop up on the other side. Like, show us, right?
Absolutely. And then your number 2 was talking about disproving gravity.
Yeah, to me, this was, wow. Like I said, it blew my mind when, it makes total sense. Density and buoyancy. If there's, gravity, to me, when I was taking physics, it was a convenient number for us to just calculate weight. It's 9.81 meters per second squared. It's an acceleration of, you can get your terminal velocity, whatever. But still, for, like, you have this gigantic ship in the water, and you have a pebble, and like, so density and buoyancy, or buoyancy, is more powerful than gravity, right? Like, you can have a pebble that'll sink to the bottom of the ocean, but the Titanic it'll eventually sink if it hits an iceberg, but right. it'll float for the time being, right? That's a cool conspiracy too, by the way, getting rid of the bankers, the bankers out of the way. So super cool. So, eventually we'll just cross link to all the episodes. But to me, that was the most mind blowing. Just walking around and realizing like this lie is so crazy. But is it a law? It's not a law. It's a theory, right? Just like the theory of relativity. And when I was talking to some people online about, going to the South Pole, let's fly down to the South Pole and we'll walk around upside down, on the bottom of this ball. Like how it's so simple. A child would think of it that way, right? But that's exactly what it would be.
Yeah.
And these people, all they can say is, well, it's relative to your position. If you're on the bottom of the ball and you're looking up, up is up to you. I'm like, no, like you're overcomplicating it. It's honestly that simple. You cannot stand on the bottom of a ball and pretend that gravity is so strong underneath that it's going to suck you up. Whereas if we were at the North Pole, it would be easier for gravity to do its work, right?
Yep. It holds us down, but a little butterfly can fly around with no problem whatsoever.
Right. And then when I talk about the speed of the Earth spinning, at the equator, when we talk about gravity, so technically at the equator, it's spinning the fastest, and we should weigh less because we're actually like getting whipped off of the Earth more, right? Like we're actually talking about physics and real forces. If I'm in Canada and I fly to wherever, Brazil, somewhere in the equator, I should weigh less.
That's right.
Because of how fast that is not going to happen. We know that that's not going to happen. And I mean, we could just go on and on. Like it's almost so simple, and it was right there. And you think, why didn't I think of that before, right? But once, like I was like going back to earlier in the show, people don't know these numbers. They don't understand these numbers. That a bullet is flying 1,800 miles per hour, and we're rotating here, one revolution per 24 hours, but that computes to 1,000 miles per hour, 1,600 kilometers an hour. Like we're flying, like spinning at the speed of almost a bullet. It's crazy.
And then you have people who try to argue the Coriolis effect. Well, it works for bullets, but it doesn't work for planes. It's either got to be one or the other. And it was great. I had a bunch of guys reach out to me who are in the military, and they verified. It's just it's more the spin of the round that comes out of the barrel, which causes it to maybe go left or right, depending on the particular boring of the particular barrel. They were flying well before GPS was ever around, and the only thing they would make a difference for is wind speed, right? That's the only thing that they would make an adjustment for. Right.
So, okay, before I forget, there's one more thing I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, sure.
Or there's actually lots I want to talk to you about, but this to me, it's like, okay, let's say the Earth is a globe, but they lied. Like they used their old ways of figuring things out. But let's say that the globe is actually like 20 times larger. And that's why all these calculations are not working, right? But now they're so far into these inconvenient lies that they can't backpedal. And I think that goes with the moon too. They created such a huge lie that it's this gigantic catastrophe now that they just, that to me is one of the biggest, like, disgusting inconveniences to actual science and actual reality is these make-believe lies that they made in the past, and now we all have to suffer because they just want to save face.
And with anything else, once you lie, you have to continue to lie to cover your previous lies. And that original lie from July 20th, 1969 has cost us hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah. So I was studying a lot of Exodus during the pandemic. I was trying to figure out human nature. And as I was studying Exodus, I started to dig more into the Ten Commandments. I mean, I knew them, but I didn't realize how important they are. And thou shalt not bear false witness, which is, basically, don't lie. Or, right. These guys, like I've heard you talk about, is it Bart? Bart Stribel.
Oh, Bart
Ah,
Sibrel.
man.
Yeah.
Bart Stribel. When he asked those astronauts to put their hands on the Bible and break that commandment, you could see how serious lying is, and especially on the Bible.
Yeah.
They knew that they would be doomed to hell. As it is, they're living a hell with this lie. It, like, provided they're not complete psychopaths, they know, like, they'll drink themselves to death or what have you. But when you put your hand on that Bible, people that know how powerful that is, they know. Like, just because you don't believe in something doesn't make it real either. And that law, that commandment is for real. So yeah, that's my take on that. That's how important telling the truth is. And once you take a bite of that poison apple and you just start lying and you're going down that path, um, you're hurting all of us. You're hurting 8 billion people right now, whether directly or indirectly, whether they know or they don't know. We're all not realizing that God created us and that we're here for a reason, and we're here to discover our gifts and share them with each other, and on earth as it is in heaven, to do to do God's work before we go back. It's so important. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's a great
That's
point. I've never really studied much into Michael Collins. I probably need to take some time and do more research into him, but I will tell you that Neil Armstrong lived his last 30 years or whatever. I think he died in the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, he drank himself to death. He was a miserable, miserable human being. He rarely made any appearances, probably in fear. Every time he was asked a question, he knew he had to lie. And obviously, like you said, these people understood. I try to be, when I think about this, I hope that maybe they were bamboozled into it at the last minute, kind of like Capricorn 1. These guys got in thinking it was legit and they got whisked away. And listen, if you're told, if you say anything, we're going to kill your entire family. And again, I don't know. Nobody knows.
It's really nice of you to say that. But that being said, we also have that footage of them, with the window, and they're flying and they're trying to get the right shot, right?
No, yeah.
They're doing the Hollywood trickery.
Yep.
So they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, that's true. I
know you're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, and it is upsetting.
Yeah.
And it's very upsetting. But
could you imagine, Alex, the weight, having that weight? Could you imagine trying to sleep at night knowing that there's little children around the world that want to be like you, and you are the biggest fraud in the history of mankind?
I would probably throw up every time I saw some type of a space thing or a space shuttle. Like, space shuttle is another one of those, like, ridiculous things. It's this giant, jumbo jet that they say can fly, 20,000 miles per hour. That's insane.
It is.
Like,
that thing would crumble.
What is it? The XR-71 Blackbird can fly 2,000, and that thing is built for speed.
Yep.
Like, that thing, that's an incredible piece of technology built, like, not 30, 40 years ago. And I think what we're doing here is really important, to not make fun of people, but to just point out these things, even if we have to repeat ourselves. Like, I always say, I want to come in with, like, some new angles and some silver bullets, but there's a lot that it bears repeating, even if it's for somebody who's heard it for the first time. If somebody hears you and me talking for the first time about this, and we inspire them to go and just start digging, and so many of us have imposter syndrome, right? Like, if I'm going to start reading and digging, who am I to disprove Isaac Newton, who came up with gravity in 1666, conveniently? And who am I to question all these people? And the thing that I've come to realize is none of those people are any better than us. Honestly, all these politicians, all these Fauci's and stuff, these are just people getting paid. These are actors. We're all here on Earth playing a role, and nobody is better than the other. It's just a matter of how much you dig. I mean, the things that you've come up with in your episodes have blown me away. And people call it, it's so insulting to call you a conspiracy theorist when you can see in each episode how much time and research you take to connect the dots that nobody else will. That CNN will just tell you some crap, and somebody has the nerve to tell you that you're a conspiracy theorist. To me, that actually boils my blood when I hear things like that. When we're just regular guys and we're doing the job that the people that we trust are supposed to be doing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Growing up, my grandfather, he was very skeptical of the government. And, back in the day, there was actually a time when there were actual journalists out there. I was taught as a young man that journalists were the unofficial, fourth arm of the government. And it was their job to keep the other three in check. In this day and age, nothing is further from the truth. They are just an arm of the Illuminati, the puppeteers. And there was that documentary a few years ago that everybody watched during COVID, where all the news, they took all these news clips from around the country, and they were all saying the same thing. So that really solidified Operation Mockingbird for me. If we can, if you still want to stay down this trail, but before we get off, I ask all our folks, and if you wanted to talk about COVID a little bit, because we get so many people who say that, they really overplayed their hand, and that was a large part of their awakening experience. I know we touched on it briefly, but I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to expand on.
Well, yeah, we can come back to flat Earth. We can talk about COVID right now. I think that COVID is a huge eye opener for anybody. My wife and I were proudly part of the Freedom Convoy, where the truckers went to Ottawa. So my daughter, she skipped school. We had the signs, we were honking, and then we got in the car and we actually joined the convoy for about 3 or 4 hours. If I could have, I would have driven straight to Ottawa and been part of that. I did talk to a few people who were a part of that, and it's just that was important. That was a really important thing for Canada, especially being so marginalized. And these people, like, I had friends even saying, nobody's making you take the vaccine. And I said, yeah, that's true. I'm self-employed. My wife and I, we work together, but I can't go to McDonald's. And that's crazy. Like, I can't go to any restaurants. I don't know how bad it was in America, but the only place I could go was the grocery store. And that was it. And that was for months. I would say probably 4 or 5 months. And my wife and I, we're maybe the 1% that didn't wear masks after a while. I wore masks at the beginning just because of virtue signaling,
right?
Just to show, I'm a good Canadian. Canadians, we have a reputation for all sticking together.
That's right.
But I think it's it's actually to our detriment, because they know our culture. The people at the top, they know we're going to look after each other, and anybody that gets out of line, hates their neighbor and things like that, and they can very easily manipulate our population. In America, I like to think, I was very disappointed in what I saw. I thought there were a lot more freedom fighters in America. Don't tell me what to do. I'll do what I want. Obviously, at the beginning, it's great to be cautious, but 2 weeks to flatten the curve, about a week into 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I just looked around. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing ever. This is not science. This is preposterous, right? Like, it's insanity to think that you're actually going to stop this airborne virus. And then being an electrician, working with asbestos, and actually having proper respirators that were sealed, having to be clean shaven,
sure.
And then knowing the micron, like, particle size. And then when you hear about actual science of, what a COVID particle is, or, like a disease particle, and these masks, they don't do anything. And it even says on the box, and people are getting mad at me for, like, pointing at the box and warning them, like, this is a false sense of security. You're going to a hockey game wearing a mask, and you're thinking you're safe, and then everybody's got COVID. Like, I'm sorry. I wish I could help you. I wish I could help you.
If they were only seated 6 feet away from each other, would save the
Right.
day.
Oh, exactly. Just to watch the people on the news, that was ridiculous. Watching them, watching like
There's
Shaq and Charles Barkley and
yes.
those guys
Sitting
sitting like
behind
10 feet apart on that
glass.
stage.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
seriously, can you believe this? Like going to the grocery store and having the poor person behind this like plastic cage, like it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Restaurants too, like it's I I mean, how many ridiculous things can we say that people did? And is it, are we laughing about it? Are we crying about it? It's unbelievable what they got people to do. And I'm guilty too. I did some of the things before I was just like, enough. Like, it's 2 years. We're at 3 years, and I cannot fly into America. America, I think, is the only country that I cannot fly into because you still have to be vaccinated to fly into America.
That changes in 10 days, sir. They just announced it today. Starting May 11th, unvaccinated people can fly into the United States 3 years and 2 months later.
Oh, man. Well, I'll be coming to see you.
Awesome.
I miss America.
There's two things that I wanted to mention to hit on what you just spoke about. Number one is the fear that they instilled on people. I mean, here we are, like you said, 30, we're what, 3 years and change since it took off. And yesterday I was at the commissary on Dover Air Force Base doing my grocery shopping, and there's still a lot of people walking around in masks. I was talking to our local pastors. We're in a very small town. We have 2 churches in the entire town. And he was telling us that there are still elderly people who refuse to come to church in person because they're still scared of COVID, which really, that when I hear stuff like that, that really saddens me.
Sure. And you know what? I can play both sides of the coin. One of our friends, she got very, very ill in Chicago, and she had to be hospitalized, and they put her in a room all by herself to die. She said that she got basically zero care. I think she refused remdesivir, thank God, because then
Thank
she
God.
probably would be dead, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that kills you, even though that's the only thing that's approved. Like, how insane do things have to get? So she literally prayed, and Matt somehow healed herself with using the forces of the universal forces and whatever you can. And she managed to get home, but that to me scared me, because I know our medical system is not great here in Canada, and if you get into that hospital, you are in very big trouble. So that I was scared. And I could see through the lens of an elderly person or somebody that was compromised with their immune system. And I had a lot of compassion for them, and I did not judge them for wearing masks or doing whatever they had to do. It's you know what, when you are blinded by fear, yeah, you'll do anything to try and survive, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And the other thing for all the listeners, like here in the States, explain to people what it was like with the passport, I guess, for lack of a better term, were they called COVID passports? And you not being allowed to go to a restaurant. And even here, they treated people like my wife, who wouldn't get the jab at she was a nurse at the hospital, that they treated you like a third world citizen. And I'm not, you know what I'm trying to say,
I know exactly what you're trying to say.
It's just, what was it like for you?
Man, without getting emotional, it was really, really hard to have my dad call me, and after he had just finished watching the news, and yell at me for putting him in danger, even though he lives in another city. Like, that's something I'll just never forget. That fear being, dumped upon these people, and then, are you on team, 3 jabs, 2 jabs, 1 jab, no jab? It was unreal. And then these vax, so we got QR codes here. Like, if you got the jab, then you could go to hockey games, you could like start to get back to normal life, right? And I was openly saying that even if I got the jab, I would never subscribe to a two-tier society like what they're trying to push here. It
Exactly.
was so Orwellian. It was unbelievable. And then to top to top that off, we had an ArriveCan app. I don't know if you've heard of that, but anybody flying into Canada would have to download an app on their
That's
phone
right. The
and then
quarantine.
yeah, enter their information. And I'm just like, why are people obeying this? Like, you do not have a government issued cell phone. You do not have to download their app. You do not have, like, if we were all in China and we had government issued cell phones that came preloaded with all these apps and we had to take them everywhere, fine. But guess what? This isn't China. This is Canada. You don't have to you could throw your cell phone on the floor, stomp on it, and walk through those gates and you should be fine. It's very presumptuous that we all have smartphones and we all have to download this crazy app. Like, if that's not a red flag to get rid of your cell phone, I mean, I know I'm addicted to it, but that I mean that's a scary thing, right?
Absolutely. And people should be very cautious of all the wearable technology out there as well. That's another tracking technique they use.
Oh, for sure. And I was joking with our friends during the pandemic. I said, just leave your phone at home if you want to come visit us. I said, the government's tracking you. I said, Tim, I don't know if you guys have Tim Hortons where you are. It's a coffee shop, but Tim Hortons pings your phone about 400 times a day to track your location so that they can send you coupons when
Wow.
they actually they just had to do a big lawsuit thing where invading people's privacy. But the government also just admitted that they were tracking people on their cell phones and seeing like if they were obeying quarantine rules. So it's a tracking device, right? Like this thing is sitting on my desk. They're already listening to us, right?
Sure.
They're they're going to do whatever they want to do, and that's fine. I'm not going to censor myself, and I would prefer them not listening to my conversations, even though I don't have anything to hide. I think that what is it? It's the Patriot Act, right? The
That's
Patriot
right.
Act is the biggest disaster in American, one of the biggest
Yeah.
disasters in American history that you guys need to you need a militia right now just to get rid of that.
Yeah, that is the biggest infringement on our rights. But again, when they perpetrate these things and they induce fear on the American people, like they did September 11th, I mean, everybody who was alive at that time, 7, 8 years or older, remember exactly watching that and the the fear based mind trauma that was brought on the people. And the first thing, whatever it takes to protect us, right? And it
Yeah.
was the same. If you think about it, if you go back to even before March of 2020, they were doing subtle things. I remember right around the Super Bowl, they were sending. You would see videos of people in China just collapsing on the ground. And then, of course, they're bringing in these big ships that were going to be floating hospitals, which, of course, were never used. But it was a big Hollywood production, and it was twofold. Number one, it was to take more of our rights. Actually, you could say it's threefold. More of our rights. It was to transfer power and eliminate the middleman. Of course, COVID didn't hit Walmart or Amazon, but all the mom and pop stores had to
Right.
shut down. And then, of course, what did they do best and what is most important to them is to keep us fighting amongst each other so it takes the focus off of them. That famous clip with Kevin, what's his name, from A Bug's Life? I play that a lot. It really resonates
Oh, yeah.
with me,
Yep.
and it takes the focus off them. So it was really a three-pronged sword that is really devastating. And look where we are today. It's tough.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really came through in my meditations this week was kindness and really like I'll say it again, like the way you do this show, it really helps people you know who are inquisitive and who are curious. It gives them a nice place to actually hear all these different stories and opinions and realize that we're not the bad guys. We want our communities to be together. We want as few divisions as possible. I'm not talking about like the Tower of Babylon where we all get together. That to me, that's the one world government, right? Like that's their whole crazy unity thing.
Absolutely.
But for us to all be different, us have all our different cultures, but still come together and still be that 99% of awesome, which I know that we are, but we're just so like their plan is so obvious now. They will do anything. That's why they call it flat earthers. That's why they're non-vaxxers. Like they will do anything they can to split us up. And all in the end game, we're all just a bunch of souls, and we're all just gonna go back where we came from. And if I can help wake up even just a few people, because it's so important to look through the lens that the people out there at the grocery store, they're not your enemies. They're just people like you and me. Like they just want to have a good life. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's really what it is.
Indeed. I think we can make our way back to flat Earth. I appreciate your thoughts on that. It's funny you mentioned earlier about Eddie Bravo. David Weiss actually put out a new video today. Well, it's not new. It was when in 2019 when he was on InfoWars. It was Sam Tripoli, Alex Jones, Eddie Bravo, and David Weiss. And the whole time, Alex Jones, Dave was really doing a good job trying to get his point across. And Alex was really being a clown the entire time. And I've said, I just did a podcast a month ago, and there's people out there who go after truthers all the time. In my 3 years, I've only made a podcast about one, and it's Alex Jones. And you have to understand, Alex Jones is going to give you the truth to a certain extent. He's not going to give you the whole truth. And I just thought it was really unusual and showed his wings, the ultimate truth, how he made it just ridiculous the entire time. Dave was doing a tremendous job trying to present. Even Eddie was going after Alex, telling him to shut up and to be quiet. But especially at the end when he was trying to, give his final words, it was really ridiculous. And I think it says a lot about him being controlled.
Yeah, and that's something that I worry about. Like, how much would it take to switch Eric Dubé and make him control opposition, or how much would it take to make you switch and become controlled opposition? I mean, we could, like, even me, like, we probably all have a price. Like, if they deposited 100 million in my bank account, I mean, I would probably shut up too. But I mean, at least if we had this on the record, then I could go live in Mexico and still have a ton of guilt. But I'm joking, but I mean, they can do whatever they want, right? Like,
Yeah.
money's not even real. Like, and we all, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I know my path, and I know that I'm not on the wrong path. My path keeps leading me towards God. So that's that's my compass. That's how I know that I am on the right track. Eddie Bravo is an interesting character. He can do all sorts of amazing things. He's a rock star. He's a comedian. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He loves to talk about flat Earth. And I wonder if he's controlled opposition too. I mean, he's super famous. He's got a big platform. And I just don't understand what Alex Jones gets from hyping up flat Earth or destroying flat Earth. To me, it's the why, right? Why don't they take it seriously? I think David Weiss is very smart, and he presents everything really well.
Yep.
And I think it's detrimental when you go on a show like that where people are don't take you serious, or they don't want to listen to you. And it's a shame, because there's a lot of really good points, and it's like everybody just needs that one silver bullet to spark their curiosity, to just start digging. I mean, I would say 90% of people are probably too lazy. Like, the only reason I started digging was because I was just all of a sudden passionate about just trying to disprove Eddie Bravo with physics and math that I wanted to exercise. And next thing you know, I couldn't do it. And I'm listening to Eric Dubé. I'm listening to your podcast. I'm listening to David Weiss, and all you guys are making really good points. And why we might not be right about everything, and that's fine. But that's what I love about, anybody that's not controlled opposition is not scared to say, I don't know. If I don't know something, if I don't know every single thing about the moon is magical. We haven't even talked about the moon. To me, I think the moon is even more important than flat Earth. It's like this thing is incredible. I got laughed out of a room because I was saying that the moon has its own light.
Absolutely.
But I mean, we know, like we know what we're taught. We're taught that it's reflecting the sun's light,
Right.
but that's ridiculous.
And
But think
again,
about how magical the moon is.
it is.
And if we had this lunar calendar that you and me had discussed in the email together, and each phase of the moon shows us the month. The moon tells us the month, the sun tells us the time of the day, the constellations and the stars, they're for guidance and for seasons, and to let us know, like, the sky is to basically be our clock, right? And if we didn't have these devices on our hands, and we just used nature, we used our senses to know when to wake up and when to go to bed, like, how in tune, like, how different would we be as a species, and how would we live our lives differently if we didn't have watches? And we, like, it would make sense, like the women's cycles with the moon, and like there's a lot of incredible things out there, and they're being thrown in the garbage because we put a bunch of astronauts on there, and now we have to live this gigantic lie. To me, that's an atrocity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that they do a lot of these things intentionally, like going from a 13-month, 28-day calendar, which our systems are, used to all these random 12 months. One has 31 days, one has 28 days, some has 30 days. I think it is to keep us out of sync with nature. And, animals, they know they're up in my chickens, as soon as the sun cracks the sky, they're bouncing around ready to go. And back in the day, before they had alarm clocks, people would wake up. I don't know how they did it, if they had fire watch or something, but I mean, people knew it was time to get up, and they started their day first thing in the morning. They didn't always have alarm clocks, through time. So that's a tremendous point.
For sure. And I love, I'll hype it here right now for David Weiss's app, that Flat Earth map. To me, it's so interesting watching the sun and where it is, and high noon is, high noon. The sun is at the highest point of the
It's
the
right
sky
above your head,
during
yeah.
the day, depending on the season. And then you have the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, and it does the like the infinity sign, the figure eight, between the
Yes.
seasons.
Yep.
And I just thought, man, that is so amazing. And I'm like, I can't believe they don't teach us in school. In physics class in grade 11, and I remember this like it was yesterday, and it was probably 25 years ago, which is kind of embarrassing. But the I was asking my teacher how it could be possible that the sun is further from us in the summer and closer during the winter, and all he had for me was the axis. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, we're literally closer. And then I was listening to one of your other episodes, and I live near the mountains, and I'm telling you, with the elevation, if I'm in the mountains, I'm getting cooked by that sun, and I'm just 1,000 feet higher than sea level, right?
I,
So we're at 4,000 feet, and if I can get up to 8,000 feet, I'm telling you, you can feel how much stronger the sun is.
Thank you for saying that exactly, because I made that point, like, I think that within the first 10 or 12 episodes of the podcast, where I had said when I was stationed at Fort Carson in Colorado, I remember vividly we had a neighborhood picnic, and it was like mid-May maybe, and it wasn't a particularly warm day, maybe 78 or 80 degrees. And I got cooked. I was out there in just a t-shirt, and I was out there for 2 or 3 hours, and I got cooked. And then when you think in retrospect, well, wait a second. If the sun is truly 93 million miles away, would a couple of 1,000 feet really make a difference? These are the things
and you
really
did that calculation too. 93 million miles. How many feet is that, right? How many bazillion feet
exactly
away? It's people, we're begging you to please wake up, please. These numbers are ludicrous. The sun. So another big wake up moment for me with Eric Dubé is the sun and the moon, the yin and the yang. They're pretty much the same size in the sky. That's like, what kind of a coincidence is that, right? Like, that's impossible. That the moon and it's all there in Genesis. You open it up, page 1, God created the sun to rule the day and the moon to rule the night. And it's right there. And anybody that tells you that it's a myth believes that everything came from nothing. The Big Bang. That is the most ridiculous. Seriously, snap out of it. This is the biggest myth ever. The Big Bang, that everything came from nothing, is so crazy. If you just stop and think about it for a minute, God created everything, and it doesn't matter what professor out there says that it's wrong. They'll meet their maker in the end.
Indeed.
And I feel bad for them.
Yeah. And that's, again, one of the reasons why we homeschool, because they do push this stuff. And now school has become just a breeding ground for these progressives, and it's not what it used to be. They don't really teach critical thinking, and that is very, very important to me. And like you said, Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 16 says, "And God made two great lights." Okay, he didn't say he made one all-powerful light that was so bright that it shone a reflection upon the moon. It's very, very distinct to say that it is its own light, and it was so. End of story. Yeah. God made two great lights, one to rule the day, one to rule the night. Again, the lesser, because obviously the sun is more powerful than the moon. And It has its cycle, and it's just like you said, it is one of the most intriguing and most, glorious things that God made for us.
For sure. It's a really interesting breadcrumb. Something that and it's so little, but it really excited me, was I just looked up the definition of luminary. And you go in there and it says a celestial body like the sun and the moon. So even under the definition of luminary, they will tell you right there that the moon has its own light. And I thought that was such a neat little breadcrumb that they're totally going against what they say, right? Where it's this magic rock reflecting sunlight. That's, come on, guys.
You know what's funny, Alex? I did the same thing in the Oxford Dictionary. It says number 1 is a noun, which is a person who inspires. Okay. Right, sure. A luminary. Yeah. But number 2, like you said, it says a natural light-giving body, especially the sun or moon. But it has the little warning above it. It says archaic.
Oh, geez.
There you go. There's the controllers there.
You just need an older dictionary then.
Yep, just like on Wikipedia, if you look up flat Earth, it's got or on any of Dave's videos, it's got the big Wikipedia warning on it. It's archaic, right?
Right. I know that we're not on the Fact Hunter podcast right now, but if we could get into, not today, but if we ever did chat again, it would be so cool to talk about ancient architecture and how they harnessed energy and free energy, right? Like Nikola Tesla is talking about that. And
the cathedrals.
The things that they have covered up in history really intrigue me, because I don't feel anymore like we are getting ahead. It's almost like we're going backwards with architecture, and it's almost like destimulating the way they're building our cities.
Yeah. We could talk about things like actually something that Dave brought up today that reminded me was I think it's called the Angkor Wat, which is down in Cambodia, not down in Cambodia, but over in Cambodia. It's one of the biggest structures in the world, and it was built in I think the 12th century. And again, there's no way we could build anything like this today.
Right. Just the pyramids alone, how incredible. It's that's on my bucket list of things to see in my lifetime, is to go and see the pyramids. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I was lucky to see the Ziggurat of Ur when I was in Iraq, And I was the first morning we woke up in Iraq, we were pretty close to where the Tigris and Euphrates meet. And, I was all over Iraq, and a lot of it's, it's funny we called it this, but we called it moon dust, because there's certain parts of Iraq that the dust was like baby powder. And
Right.
it was awful. You could never stay clean. Every step you took, it was just powder. Literally walking in 6 inches of baby powder. It was like, but yeah, there was definitely a special feeling when you're around certain places like that, and I'm sure you would have that same feeling around the pyramids.
For sure. And there's like where we live, I believe like Lake Louise is a huge energetic vortex. I don't know how into those kinds of things you are. Like I know in Sedona, I believe it's Sedona,
Mm-hmm.
has some type of energetic vortex there. There's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of tourism there. We were just there probably last month, and it was overwhelming. But it's a neat area to be in energetically. And there's these different places in the world. I mean, I'm telling you, there's so many. It's great that we're having this great awakening, because it's forcing a lot of people to reconnect. I actually believe that our children are way more spiritually connected than we are even. I feel like we're almost like having to deprogram and then get more in touch with our spirituality after, how many years of, propaganda on the TV and those things. But yeah, my daughters, they're very in tune with the world, and they can feel things very differently than us. And I mean, that's an interesting subject too.
Were you talking about the Sedona healing vortex in Arizona?
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, you were in Arizona just recently?
Yeah, we drove.
Yeah.
We got in the car and we drove 23 hours to
Holy
Phoenix. But
cow.
we went to go see. It was a great drive. When you're locked in your house for 2 years, you don't mind a nice road
Sure,
trip.
we love traveling too. Well, we don't like flying too much. Back in the day, it used to be a lot of fun. It was special to fly, and it was fun. But now it's just, my goodness, it's like you're a prisoner on Con Air when you're going through everything.
Yeah, exactly. I've been in some pretty bad airports in my day.
Oh yeah, and the people today, it's just interesting people. Did you feel a particular energy while you were there?
No, actually I didn't, because I joke, it's very people-y. Like in Canada, if you came to visit us here and we went to Lake Louise, we could probably get to a place where there would be nobody, and you could actually like be with nature and really like sit down and meditate with that, and try and have an experience where we are. And not to knock Sedona, we were where all the tourists were, and we didn't really get out onto the trails and try and have those experiences. I bet you there's some amazing things there, and I regret not doing it. We just didn't have the time. We were just more in the town, but I think it would be worth it. But I mean, I got my own vortex here, like not even an hour away, so
Nice.
I can always do it. Yeah, and it's beautiful here where we are.
What haven't we
But
touched on that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of my goals this summer is to
Mhm.
climb one of the mountains, and then I'll send you a picture of
Nice.
as far as the eye can see. And we were joking about the horizon being like a paper roll towel, where it doesn't actually curve on the sides. It's supposed to just curve over in front of you. And
Right.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I'll be getting back to Colorado Springs sooner or later, and I definitely we'll do the Manitou Mile and take a picture. It's just amazing. I'll make sure it's a clear day. And we've gotten so many great pictures from people. And again, you guys can jump in the chat room and see. Eventually, I need to make an additional page on the website so I can post them and put people's name and location where they're from, and they can stay there, because obviously the chat room, people are going to type and it's going to disappear. But yeah, it's just that when you really stop and use your senses, you realize that it is unbelievable. It is just the greatest lie. And there's been some whoppers, right, from the moon to Iraq. I mean, the evil. There's so much evil in this world, but it's good that we focus on the lighter side. And I've gotten so many emails that the Flat Earth, like you said, has brought not just to God, which is obviously the most important, but even with family members. We hear with COVID, you did, and I know I did. It was very divisive. It was a very divisive,
Yes.
especially that first year. And everybody was asking are you vaccinated? Like all of a sudden, everybody's, medical history was public knowledge. People would ask me,
Right.
are you vaccinated? And I would say, what's the word? I don't know. I'm having a brain cramp all of a sudden. What's the word when you're snipped, when you're male and you go get the operation?
Oh, a vasectomy.
Yeah. I said, I don't know. Have you gotten a vasectomy or something like that? And they would look at me like,
Yeah.
and they'd kind of
I was joking too. I was updating my Facebook status with, I'm going for my colonoscopy today. What? We don't just update our medical status now?
Exactly.
I hope I'm not offending anybody.
It was so irrational, the whole thing. But this is obviously, if we could reverse this lie, I think it would certainly drop a great veil upon mankind, and people would truly see the evil for what it is. But at the same time, while we are converting people, or at least bringing them in and allowing folks to hopefully just let their guard down for a minute to look into it, when they do, come across the flat earth, I'm telling you, 99% of the people are just great, tremendous people. I thought when I got into this, I was going to get mostly troll emails. Everybody's been wonderful. It's a great community. We all have our, varying opinions, but at the end of the day, it is just a tremendous community with great people and a lot of faith-based folks, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I think one of the big points too I wanted to make is the school system, the professors, the left, which is communism. We talked about my off air. We were talking about my grandparents and how they're from Russia and they escaped communism. But there's nothing that communism likes more than taking you away from God. And this globe, I would say that the globe is a perfect representation of taking you away from God. The Big Bang Theory takes you away from God, takes you away from the Creator. I'm no religious expert. I mean, I love studying Exodus and Genesis, and I'm still learning. But anything that brings you closer is good, and anything that takes you away is not good. And communism, I always thought that communism was a conspiracy theory, that it could never ever come to America. And what we have been seeing is unbelievable. What people are doing, and I always say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes,
and I will keep saying that. And anybody who drinks the communist Kool-Aid, if you read the Communist Manifesto, it's this veil, and it sounds so great. And if done correctly, you'll live in this paradise. And I'm telling you, it's all garbage. And it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what your opinion is. I know that it's garbage. It's a fact. Nobody can accomplish it correctly because of human nature. If you understand human nature, if you study human nature, if you study Exodus, I mean, you can perform miracles over and over again. But if the people don't have faith, they'll just keep asking you to perform another miracle in front of them. And I'm just trying to tie all these things together. It's just so important to understand human nature, why we do things. We're like the Trinity, right? We're spiritual, we're of mind, and we're of body. And so many of us are lacking the spirit and realizing how important that spirit is. Our mind and our body are great. We're in this animal body on this planet, but our soul got put here, to drive this body around and give us free will so that we can do incredible things. And I think that I'm just so blessed that Flat Earth gave me this epiphany in September that I am actually special. Like, I was born for a reason, and all the things that happened to me or for me, help me along this journey. But all along the way, I don't make excuses. I learn from things. I build upon them. I acquire more tools. I meet incredible people like you, and we keep going forward. And we just, how incredible is life? that you and me are talking on this podcast right now. Like, to me, that's one of the best things about COVID is I met so many people just from Zoom. And how good are we at connecting now? We don't even have to be in the same room, but we can always stay in touch now. And I know that we had that with email, but now things are just getting easier and easier. And I think that there's a lot of good that came out of the last 2 years, and I will continue to hold that dear to me, that it was that time where we had to get stronger and we survived it, and now we are better.
Yep.
It's like we went through this insane workout and now we're just stronger and better, and going forward we will continue to do God's work.
Extremely well said. And when you were talking about that you couldn't believe the things that you were seeing in America, as many of us couldn't, it took me back to G. Michael Hopf in his book, Those Who Remain. He said, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. So there's this vicious cycle. And if you just look over the last 100 years, that cycle is indeed good times. You're just like anything else. The guy hits the lottery. He's rich. He doesn't work anymore. He eats and drinks all day. He's 300 pounds, has a heart attack. He's back on hard times. It's a very vicious cycle. And that's why important in life, you have to try to keep everything level. Never get too high, never get too low. You're going to have good days and bad days, and try to keep everything even keel. And that's kind of the mantra I've tried to live by over the last few years.
Yeah, and you build. We are rebuilding our tribe right now, whether we like it or not. It was a crazy 2 years, and I think we'll rebuild our tribes bigger and better. I honestly believe that. There's a lot of really good people out there, and what they wanted us to think and believe was that there wasn't, that we were just there's so few and far between us. And when we went to that the trucker convoy, it was incredible how so many people in Canada came together and did that. And I mean, it scared our prime minister so bad he had to go hide and pretend he had COVID. And
I remember that,
in some cabin, and it was probably the funniest thing I had ever seen.
By the way, kudos for you. I didn't mean to jump in, but kudos for you to do that, because I heard all the stories of people whose banks were taken away, and they had a give, send, go or something, and all the money was hijacked. And again, you guys, a lot of people think you guys have the exact same freedoms we do. I don't think you even have the same freedom of speech laws we have, which again, it's on paper we do, but we're losing them every day.
Yeah, it's really important to note that they played their hand. When we talk about overplaying your hand, that's overplaying your hand. If you are going to be a tyrannical government and shut down people's bank accounts, you've crossed so many lines there. I am trying to figure out how, especially with Bill C-11, I would love to communicate with as many people as possible about no longer paying income tax. And I'm not even joking when I say that. I honestly don't think that the mafia government deserves a penny of ours. If we're running a deficit, you guys have a deficit. We have a $1 trillion deficit, which is unheard of. And we're going to start giving money to Ukraine and doing all these ridiculous things. Well, I know we're getting off topic with Flat Earth, but all these things kind of tie together. We're living it. Are we free? Are we free, or are we like victims of a mafia government? And I think that we need to make some major changes, because if they're just going to print money, then they don't need my money.
Now, that C-11 Act was just passed, like officially a few days ago, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most people here will think it's a conspiracy theory, that's not really going to happen, and it's terrifying. Like, everybody needs to know that they are passing these things, just like the Patriot Act. Like Edward Snowden blew the whistle, and did anything change? Like, that's the part that really bothers me. When a guy sticks his neck out like that, basically ruins his life, and has to go live in Russia. I don't know what the real deal is there, but obviously he uprooted his life to let people know that the government is listening to them. These are these are big things. And then when we don't react, they realize that they can get away with more and they can push more. And we need to not let that happen anymore. I realize that most of us are middle class, but you know what? If they keep squeezing us, we're not going to be middle class anymore. And, you know, the rich people, yeah, God bless them. But I mean, you still need the middle class and lower class people to work hard and keep building, you know, the country. You can't just like dump everybody in the trash.
Indeed. It's, I'm looking at the bill, and it's interesting. Pardon me. It was originally presented on the anniversary of JFK, 11/22/2021. Lots of numerology in this bill. It's C11.
Oh, yeah.
11/22, and it is the 44th Parliament. So that is just 11s all over the place. And I don't know much about this bill, but is this kind of, does this mirror like the Smith Modernization Act that we had back in 2012, where it allowed the federal government to use propaganda against its own people?
From what I understand from the bill, it can censor anything on YouTube it's basically China, right? It's like China's version of Google. If they don't want you to see it, Google's not going to show it to you. And Google's already bad. And like DuckDuckGo is terrible already. Yep. I don't know if you've noticed these things, but I mean, I work in SEO, and when I do searches, like research on anything lately, you know, good search engine optimization, Google's job is to get you the most reliable, best credited source, number one. And I just have not been seeing that lately. And I don't know what's going on over there, but it leaves me scratching my head that things are nefarious. And when we start, like, okay, so here's a great example, not to get too off topic, but pornography, child pornography. How can they like let this stuff happen and go? And then meanwhile, you know, the Fact Hunter podcast, oh, he mentioned COVID, we're going to slap a label on it and we're going to censor it. But, you know, go for it with all the child pornography. It's all good.
Indeed.
Like to me, that is just insane.
Or mention Ted Kaczynski in the title of your podcast, and it gets pulled completely.
Right.
What are you going to
do? It's incredible. So, I had a question for you, because I really wanted to know how your flat Earth journey started, and I don't know if you mentioned it on any of the previous ones, but I wanted to know what was your like aha moment. Like for me, it was the North Star and the stars turning around. I just thought, how can the rest be happening, right? As a, you know, somebody who loves physics.
Well, I had already been hip to, you know, awake to everything else from 9/11 to the Gulf of Tonkin, and I read Dave McGowan's book about the scenes from the 60s and how every single one of these huge bands from the 60s were all connected from the same neighborhood, and all their parents were intelligence agents, from the Grateful Dead to the Doors. Jim Morrison's dad was the admiral on the USS Maddox, which was the boat involved in the Gulf of Tonkin, which led to 58,000 young men and women getting sent to their death in Vietnam. And 6 months later, you know, his son is the biggest name in the music industry. So I had really been all the way down, but I never, I'd come across a video on YouTube. I'd go right past it. And I was like, come on. I mean, there's, you know, there's conspiracy theories, and then there's just crazy people, and I wouldn't give it a second thought. But, you know, shortly into my Fact Hunter, I got an email 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago, and it was from a guy named David Weiss. And I opened it up, and he said, "Hey, my name's David Weiss. I'm a flat earther, and I'd love to come on your podcast." And I like laughed, and I deleted it. It was something where it was eating away at me all night, because I always tell people, send me your emails. And I literally do respond to just about everybody. I mean, if you're just rude to me, I'm not going to respond to you. But he was very cordial, and it was eating away at me. So I said, I went, turned my computer back on. It was that night or the next day, you know, went to the trash bin. You know, I didn't delete the trash, so I pulled it back out. And there was a link. I was going to reply to. I saw a link. I said, well, let me just see what's going on. And I think it was the conversation that he had with Crow 777. I know it's one of his most viewed videos, and it was probably from 2017, 2018, 2019. So I was doing something in the house, working in the garage. I just popped my headphones on and hit play. Let's just see what's going on. And then it was, we can see too far. Started talking about 8 inches per mile squared. I started doing a little bit of math and then the thing that really resonated with me was, again, I had no idea. If you would have asked 2015, 2018 George how far the sun how far the sun was away from us, I couldn't tell you. But when I found out it was 93 million, and I remember I was living by the Dover Air Force Base. I walked outside, looked up, and you could see the rays coming through the clouds. I'm like, how could they come out at that far of an angle if it was night? Or, none of it made sense to me. And I started to question it. And then, of course, the moon is a big one too, like you said. And the more I went down the rabbit hole, we set up the interview. I emailed him back because I was intrigued within the first 24 hours of watching the videos and doing a little reading. We set up an interview 2 weeks later. And by that time, I had done nothing for 2 weeks except consuming this information. And I was like a schoolgirl when I met him. I was so excited to talk. He was a little disappointed because he likes turning globers into flat earthers. But at that point, I had done all the math and research, and we live by the beach. We can be at the beach in 30 minutes. And sure enough, you get a strong enough piece of glass, and you can pull these things back in over the horizon. And you sit down. I remember I've always had a relationship with God. But then, I sat back down and read Genesis again, and it all clicked. It all made sense.
Yeah.
And then you realize, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I read Genesis again, like it was my first time in September, and then I realized that was the truth. That was my epiphany. And the thing that really upset me is how far away I got from believing that. Absolutely.
Yep. And I was kind of disappointed in myself because during my time in the Army, I was either deployed or, working 12-hour days. When I came home, I was not very interested in my older daughter's schoolwork. My wife was she would keep an eye on that. And then you realize, my goodness, she's already, she's graduated and off, and she's had 12 years of this indoctrination. She's getting pushed the Big Bang Theory and evolution and dinosaurs and these type of things that just don't add up. So we took it to heart. And then that was the same time when COVID kicked off. And it was the first day my daughter's home, on Zoom, and the teacher's talking, and I'm in there listening. I'm like, this is just it. And it's weird. Like the David Weiss interview and COVID and everything was like all within a matter of weeks. And I changed my life. And we started homeschooling. We started searching for land, so we could raise our own food. It's just one of those things that, again, we are here for a reason, and things happen for a reason. None of this is an accident. And, people always try to say Dave is a shill, this and that. David Weiss changed my life. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I like to look at things as blessings. Like even if it's a bad thing, like COVID and the lockdown, I try to find the good that came from it. And I've done that with every part of my life. It's like, what is the tool? What is the strength that I'm going to get? What is the lesson that I'm going to get from this? And like I said, I'll give a huge shout out to the government for making it so that I don't trust them anymore. I was laughing the other day when Trudeau was saying, "Oh, you anti-vaxxers," and I'm like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I got the H1N1, I got Twinrix, I got all my shots, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to get this one, and I'm probably not going to get any more vaccines ever again. So, oh yeah, okay, thanks. Well, I guess you made me an anti-vaxxer. I guess I am an anti-vaxxer now. But it's your fault. Your lies, your inconvenient lies, and now he's backpedaling and gaslighting people. It's like, dude, I don't think you understand how many people you woke up because you just couldn't keep it together. You had to overplay your hand, and that's a blessing. That's a huge blessing for us all.
I think it would have been different if they would have said, listen, The guys at Pfizer and Merck have done a tremendous job, and we think this is the best avenue, but we understand if you're hesitant. I wonder if more people would have been like, well, they seem honest about it, right? Because they're saying, listen, if you want to take it, fine. If not, we understand. But we really think this is the best avenue. And if you have some doctors standing there and nodding their head and everything, I think more people would have done it. But when you have something that you claim is a magical elixir, but you still have to bribe people on top of it to take it, then people obviously know that because anything that's that good will sell itself.
Exactly. If it works, you don't even need marketing. It's like milk, right?
Yeah.
Does milk even need commercials? No. You just go and you buy milk. You go buy eggs. Like if something works, like we were just in Phoenix, and it is incredible. Like in Canada, we don't have commercials for pharmaceuticals. When
Yeah.
we were in America, I can't believe how many insane commercials there were. And it's like, side effects include death and bleeding from your anus. I'm like, what? Like, this is like worse than the disease.
The only two countries in the world that are allowed to have, pharmacy to consumer direct commercials are the United States and New Zealand. I get people all the time. We have friends who live in Ecuador. They came home to visit their family. They're like, what is going on? They had something for hair loss, and it was 45 seconds of side effects. All of the commercials here are the same thing. They're people walking in slow motion, smiling, and it's 15 seconds of what it might help you with, and then 45 seconds of death, stroke, fingers fall off, cross-eyed, Bell's palsy, one thing after another.
Right. And I think I was really disappointed in our Canadian doctors and nurses because they're not like incentivized like they are in America. In America, it's almost like the doctors are like drug dealers, right? Like they get kickbacks from certain drugs, right?
Oh, yeah, here too.
But here our doctors don't have that. So I just didn't. I mean, a lot of them probably meant well, but I mean, but that's all well and good if you're not liable, right?
Yep, that's right.
If we have one lady here in Canada, I can't remember what her handle is, independent journalist or something like that. She goes around to pharmacies and she is handing out notices of liability. And I think this is such a powerful thing. Can you imagine being served with a notice of liability and then you're on the hook, right?
Yep.
Like think about the next time you're going to inject somebody with something, but now you're liable. That's the way it should have been all along.
Yeah, absolutely. And people need to sit down and read the Nuremberg Code and realize this is treason, what they did over the last couple of years. And it's insane how, they coerced people. And that exact word is in the very first section of the Nuremberg Code is coercion and threatening people with their being able to feed their families, take the jab or good luck finding another job. I'll tell you this, and we'll get back to Flat Earth. But on my Fact Hunter podcast in 2021, I was getting emails from guys who had like 18 years in the service. They were 2 years away from their retirement, and they were being forced with this stuff. And I was just heartbroken because, I put myself in that, and, I thought about it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, 2 years away from and our pension in the military starts right on retirement. You don't have to wait till you're 60. It starts as soon as you retire. It's part of the reasons I'm able to do what I do now. I mean, I still have my side hustles, but it was just very, very infuriating to see what they did to people.
It's so your wife, she can't get her job back?
No, she was yeah, and the whole range of if you remember when these folks were passing, they weren't allowed to have anybody in the room with them.
Yes, this is another it's unbelievable.
So my wife would be in there as they passed, and she would have to listen to these people cry, as they were passing. I just want to see my husband. I just want to see my daughter. And, my wife, they call her a hero. These companies were buying, there would be dinner buffets for them at night. They were heroes. And a year later, if you didn't take this vaccine with zero test history to it, you were vilified. And had to test every week and wear, they made her wear 2 masks, dude, 2 masks. And, it was just, here's my wife. She came first generation Hungarian. She came to the United States at the age of 22. And then, here's me. I was in the military for 24 years thinking I'm defending the Constitution. And then, they do this to our family. And, it's just sickening, the whole thing. And I know the reason I talk about it is because the flat earth helped me realize that everything is a lie. Like literally almost everything is a lie. And we have to question everything. And that's one of the reasons that I'm thankful that I did wake up at the time. I stayed far away from that vaccine.
I think it's kind of a blessing to question everything. It makes life more interesting.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking everybody's word for it, which is what they did to us in school. They just shoved as much into us as possible and then shoved us out the door. And most of it was who knows what. And we just never questioned it, right? We just believed our teachers. And honestly, like I'm in my mid 40s and I'm excited to wake up and work. And then in the evenings, I'll read and I'll learn new things. It's like, wow, it's like, I remember finishing university. I just never even wanted to read a book ever again, just because they just shoved us so full of whatever, all these books that I didn't even want to learn. And now I don't know. I like I said, I'm looking for the good, and the good is researching. It's fun. It's fun to go on podcasts. It's fun to connect with people, and it's not fun to be laughed at and made fun of and be told you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I got this great quote from Gandhi for you here. It says, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they'll fight you, and then you win.
Nice.
And I think it's inevitable that that's just human nature, right? If we can persevere, if we can persevere through being made fun of and then being vilified, eventually they just have to accept the fact that we're going to blaze the trail. And it's kind of cool. Like, who am I? I'm just Joe Canada in the middle of nowhere. And, if I can help some people realize that, the government isn't your best friend. Like, this is Animal Farm. Like, everybody read Animal Farm tomorrow. If you haven't, like, it'll tell you everything you need to know about the government. And, it's incredible. And I want to say, George, that you're very smart for marrying a Hungarian woman, because obviously I did too, and life's just never been better.
It has not. It's the most. She's just changed my life, and how she puts up with me, I don't know. But I'm blessed that she woke up with me, and when I presented her with this, I was like, "What is she going to think?" And let me ask you that we're starting to wind down here. We're almost 2 hours in, but I do want to ask you. Obviously, you're probably like me when you finally said it. Yeah, I think the earth is flat. Were you anxious to share it with other people, or were you hesitant?
Yeah, so that's where I think that you're awesome, and you share the knowledge so well, and I get too passionate. I get like really fired up, and I can see people shut down, and it's like, oh man, and I'm trying to even stay calm here on the podcast, but once I get going, I get going. But right away I had to share it with my wife, and I was showing her some of these things, and we're she's very open, and I'm open too. Like, I'm not totally married to anything, because I think you get a lot of blind spots when you are.
Yeah.
But the more we learn, the better. And I presented it to my 14-year-old daughter, and she just thought she still thinks I'm crazy, and that's okay. She thought I was crazy about COVID. She thought that I was a big conspiracy theorist against the vaccine, and she just wanted to get it, but she just wanted to be like all her friends, right? She's trying to fit in and find her way, but it's my job as her dad to protect her. And then my youngest daughter, she is totally on the flat earth bandwagon with me. It's so
Nice.
funny. She's in grade 6, and she goes to Catholic school, and and I was really surprised that in Catholic school they teach the Big Bang theory. And I even emailed her teacher. I'm like, are you ignoring Genesis, or what's going on here? And that, to me, that was very interesting. Flat Earth is, it's such an interesting topic, and I want to get better at providing key points that spark people's curiosity and ask the right questions. So lately I've been, I have a friend that's a pilot. So I was just kind of asking him questions of like, did you see have you ever seen the curve of the earth? He's like, yeah, I saw it at 40,000 feet. I'm like, oh, well, I'm cool. I'm like, I'll believe you before I believe Neil deGrasse Tyson. But I just want you to know that your buddy Neil deGrasse Tyson says you can't see the curve until 120,000 feet. So he's calling you a liar. So you should probably check with him and make sure that you can see it. So I'm not a pilot, and I've never been at 40,000 feet. I've probably been at 20,000, 30,000 feet. But I mean, you look out the window, it's horizon, right?
Yeah.
I don't, if people only knew what they were supposed to see without a fisheye lens, and that's what bothers me. It's if the Earth was a globe, fine, but whatever numbers they've given us for the Earth curvature, we can see further than that, and we can prove that those numbers are incorrect.
Absolutely. I've been
Right?
I've been thinking, I've been saying I want to start doing more activism locally, and I decided I don't know if I want to come up with flyers where, like, if I came up with a really cool flyer with something you could hand to somebody, but what information should I put on it? It's got to be catchy, it's got to be inquisitive, and it's got to have a website on it, or business cards. Business card is something I've been kicking around as well. Something you can hand to somebody, say, hey, check this out. And, but I think
Sure,
you have, biblical earth, because I think, and again, I'm never going to change the title because so many people put flat earth in their search engine and that's how they find the podcast. But there is a stigma to those words. So,
Right.
I've been saying I really want to do more things locally on the ground with activism, but I really want to make sure that whatever I come up with, whether it be a flyer, and if I ever did do that, I would put it on the website so people could log on and print them off for themselves. But I want it to be inquisitive. I want to make people curious to look into it. And again, I want to make sure it's presented well, because that's the most important thing. You never know when somebody listens to my podcast, I always think they don't always start at the first podcast. So I always try to, keep everything even keel. And I don't like to use words like globetard and,
Right.
sheeple, which, at some point, maybe I use the sheeple word, but we need to be a welcoming community. And, we're Christians, we're God-fearing, Christ-loving people. And I do want to start doing things locally. So if anybody has any ideas, send me an email. Maybe you can come up with a flyer or a business card example for us to share. And, next time we're walking around the mall or we go to Sam's Club once a month to get our supplies. We can, leave some little nuggets, maybe on the anyway, you know what I'm getting at.
I'm sure that you and I can collaborate because that's basically what we do for a living. So
Yeah, please tell us a little bit about KP Design, if you wouldn't mind.
sure. My wife and I, we've known each other since we were 15 years old. We're going on 45, so almost 30 years together. We got married when we were 20. My wife's been an entrepreneur, one of the first like stay-at-home moms, but working as a graphic designer, web designer, raising our kids. And she was originally a music teacher. And yeah, now we do amazing brands, website design, business cards, all sorts of things like that. I do the SEO and Google ads for people, and it's been incredible. Like I think I started with her 4 years ago, but she's been in business for over 20 years now. And I came in and I basically reverse engineered my position with the company, and we've been growing ever since. And it's been such a blessing. It was one of our goals growing up, even, was to eventually work together, and we actually made it happen just before COVID, and it was so cool to connect the dots that, man, we're self-employed and we don't, we're so blessed that we don't have to endure the what is it, duress of having this shot held over your head. I mean, I know that we suffered by not being able to go out and, basically only go to the grocery store. But we're, like I said, we're just looking for the good, and we never got sick. And we, we became stronger throughout the entire ordeal. We actually wrote a book called Partners in Everything. That's on Amazon if anybody wants to check that out. And I seriously encourage anyone to go out there and start a business with your spouse, because the two of you working together can do incredible things. There's a lot of people that joke that they could never work with their spouse, but my wife and I, we don't really step on each other's toes. She has her side of the business and I have mine. And when we, you know, bond together and go forward with this vision of what we want to do, we really elevate the human experience for all of our clients. Now going forward, one of our major goals is to buy a big property. Just don't know where yet. And we would like to create a healing center for people to come, either for mental health, physical health, spiritual health. We want to be the facilitators, or not. We would bring in facilitators, but we would be the organizers and the hosts for something like that. And that is KP Design's future goal. Like, we would love to, give back to our community, or have people come in from other countries even and just heal, because there's a lot of damage out there that's been done. And if we could build something incredible to give back, that would just, even if I didn't get any money, that would make my heart explode, because it would I feel like I would accomplish my life and soul's purpose by doing that, and especially with my partner. So that's basically the long answer of what we do.
That's great. And again, it's kpdesign.ca, and the link will be in the show description, and you can click on the contact link to reach out to Alex. And if you wouldn't mind, when we're done here, could you email me a link to your book on Amazon so I can put that in the show description as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. That way people don't have to, get onto Amazon and start searching for it. So again, folks, in the show description, there'll be his website and the link to his book as well. So, and again, we'd love to hear from you guys. It's geez, this is what happens when I do two podcasts in one day. My mind goes, it's the Flat Earth Files at gmail.com, with your thoughts and, comments. And again, if you'd like to join the show like Alex did tonight, Alex, I'd like to give you the floor for, any, final thoughts.
Yeah. Man, I feel like I talk so much, but I'm just so honored to be on the show, and I hope that I did a good enough job, inspiring some people to at least challenge some of the numbers and the narrative. I'm a big numbers guy, and that's how I got involved in this. And I love real science, and what they've been telling us on TV is not real science. I think most of us know that by now. And I don't even have to pretend that I'm a professor of anything. Like, what we can learn and what we can do going out and finding the right resources is incredible. And question everything. Don't just assume that Isaac Newton's a great guy and all, but just don't. We can't even assume that everything he did was on the up and up anymore, because of all these contradictions now. So don't get married to an idea either. Like I said many times during the podcast, if who knows exactly what's going on in this realm, but we know it's not what they say it is. So we might as well have fun and meet incredible people, have great conversations. Don't get angry with each other, and just make it a positive experience, trying to learn from other people. You can always learn something from somebody. I could even learn something from Justin Trudeau, mostly what not to do, but it's still something to learn.
There you go. Well, it was certainly a pleasure having you on. And again, let's cross over down the road. I'd love to have you on the Fact Hunter as well. It's funny, the guy I interviewed this morning was for the Fact Hunter, and he's going to be coming on the Flat Earth Files down the road. So we're having a dual show crossover today. It's incredible. And remember, folks, just because an apple fell from a tree doesn't prove gravity. For Alex, again, from Cochrane, Alberta, Canada, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to check the show description to reach out to Alex, and we'd love to hear from you. Again, it's the Flat Earth Files at gmail.com, and please stop by the website, theflatearthfiles.com. God bless everyone. Thank you again for joining us. Until the next time, my friends, we will see you.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.
T-Mobile has invested billions to light up America's largest 5G network, from big cities to small towns, including right here in yours. And great coverage is just the beginning. Right now, families and small businesses can save up to 20% versus AT&T and Verizon when they switch. Visit your local T-Mobile store today.
Plan savings with 2 to 3 lines of T-Mobile Essentials versus comparable available plans. Plan features and taxes and fees may vary.